About 5,000 miles away from Iraq, in Japan, another crisis involving children is playing out. There aren't enough of them. The island nation is facing one of the largest population collapses in modern history. A demographic time bomb is how some economists are describing it. At the beginning of this year, Japan's population fell at its fastest pace since 1968, when comparable figures started being collected.
About 47.2% among married couples have no sexual intercourse over 1 month.
The school closed about 20 years or so ago, and across Japan, schools have been closing in large numbers because there simply aren't enough people, simply not enough kids to go to class anymore.
Well, aside from low fertility rates, Japan has long been reluctant to open up to immigration. And without immigrants or young Japanese people to take on jobs, machines may be the next best thing. But as Adam Yamaguchi discovered, many of these aren't just machines, they're actually human androids. And their goal, ironically, is to bring humanity back into people's lives.
It's very strange being in a room with Erica the robot. There were many times when I just sat back and had a conversation with this robot as if it were any other living human being. And I caught myself off guard so many times because, when you talk to a human being, you're looking at a lot of nonverbal cues. Fidgeting, they're twitching, they're making tiny, tiny movements. And it's those things that make these robots feel and look so realistic. And during the course of my conversation with her, I'd forget so many times that this was in fact a robot. The skin on these robots felt incredibly lifelike. I think they were made of some sort of a silicone, but incredibly realistic. The only dead giveaway was that the skin was cold. Erica told a number of jokes. These were pre-programmed jokes, and they were terrible jokes. And she would not stop. She just would not stop.
Why are robot engineers never lonely? Because they're always making new friends. How about another one?
Yeah, I remember one joke that Erica told towards the end was a little ominous.
How do you stop a robot from destroying you and the rest of human civilization?
I don't know.
You don't. How?
She was joking about it, but I think she was playing upon, what a lot of people fear, especially in the US. Robots are seen as job killers. They're seen as replacements for people in factories, maybe driving vehicles in the future. And there's just, there's a fear that, they will take over. And the artificial intelligence that is advancing at such a rapid pace today may ultimately replace the need for humans in key roles. I went to visit a robot hotel, and while most of the customers today are going simply because it's funny and there's a little bit of a novelty to it, you get to see a T-Rex check you into your hotel room, but it's really not that far off. I remember one of the proprietors of the hotel saying that there are hoteliers from all over the world who've come to visit him in the last 6 months as they're trying to figure out how to introduce some of these robotics into their hotels. To me, what's so interesting about this story, of course the story is primarily about robots, but if you peel back a few of the layers, this actually reveals itself to be a story largely about immigration and about automation. Japan, as a matter of its own history, it's an island nation that's never been colonized, has no traditions or history with immigration. And so as the population declines, many in the world just say, well, why don't you just change your immigration policies and allow more foreigners to come in? Well, Japan doesn't have that experience. They don't know what it is to let other people from other countries come in. There's a fear of that naturally because they don't have that history. And so there are many Japanese people who say, we would rather have robots that are programmed to be like us, to understand our culture, than to allow immigrants in who don't know what it is to be Japanese. And I think that's what's so fascinating about the story. In many ways, Japan has always been primed to see robots being introduced and integrated into society in ways that we probably couldn't even imagine here in the US. And part of it has to do with the spirituality of the Japanese people. There's a term called animism. And what it means is that any objects, animate objects, inanimate objects, can have souls. So while we in America might see robots, however realistic they may look, as nothing but two pieces of silicone and steel and metal, in Japan, they can look at that same robot and see through it and say, this has a soul, because any objects in nature can have souls. And so the idea of interacting in a real way with these man-made machines isn't so unusual or strange to them. One of the things that I found really interesting was that Dr. Ishiguro really he turned the tables and asked me questions about what it is to be human. And he had posed the question, if you have somebody who's missing limbs and they have prosthetic limbs and robotic body parts, are they any less human? And I said, of course not.
Are they 100% humans or 80% humans or 70% humans? So give me your answer.
They're still human.
Okay, 100% humans.
Yeah.
That means that the fresh body is not a requirement to be humans. Okay, we don't care about the fresh bodies.
Right.
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 So even if they use the prosthetic and artificial arm and the legs and the brains and the heart and the organs,
right,
still we can accept that person as the humans.
Yeah.
So fresh body cannot distinguish human and others. Right. So no
Okay.
boundaries.
And that's a really interesting idea. This idea that humans and robotic arms and legs can be fused together and be one and the same. One of the things that I think you're going to start to see in the next coming decades is the fusion of those two technologies. Robots and humans kind of coming together and becoming these advanced cyborgs. I don't think that's that far off. There will be a day when these robots will be so advanced that they will be able to think and act autonomously. And I think we are now kind of at that crossroads where we need to figure out what role we want these robots to play in our lives.